Hey everyone, Simply Zoological here. I just want to start by saying thank you for watching, and I hope you're having a great day. So as you can see, we are back with another episode of Saguaro Sanctuary, and in today's video, we will be finishing up the night house with some backstage detailing. And then next week, we will have our tour for the night house, and then from then on, it'll just kind of be a hodgepodge of whatever I feel like building for that week. But right now, as you can see, I am currently working on the fencing for the backstage. And it took me longer than it should have, I will admit that, just because I wanted the prongs for the metal fence itself to be very evenly spaced. But for this fence, I used the doubled up mesh panels along with some marquee beams and the metal mesh metal fence. But I was quite nervous to start on the backstage just because I haven't ever done a backstaging before. Or if I have, it was, I used blueprints off of the workshop. But this was my first time actually doing it myself. And I'm quite happy with not only myself, but with how I did it. I'm very proud that I was able to do it and it looked good. I was kind of nervous at first that it wouldn't look all that good, or that it would look almost too stylized and it wouldn't look very natural. But I was able to get it to look pretty natural, I feel like. But anyways, as you can see, we have finished the actual fence portion, and now I am currently working on the door itself. And this door was actually a lot simpler than I thought it would have been, just because I was able to use the 1x1 meter mesh panels for the doubled up metal. And then I added some hinges onto the sides, so that way the door could actually open and close. And then for the handle, I wanted to use the conservation hook, but I decided that was too big. So I go in, I think, with the gutter cap or something like that, and recolor it to black, and then just copy that over to the other side. And although it still looks quite large, I like this more than I liked the handle or the hook. And then now I am working on building a sink and a counter. And the sink and counter was actually a lot simpler than I thought it would have been. And I was able to make one sink and one counter and just copy them for the rest of the backstages that we do in this video. And for the sink, I just used the wheelbarrow basin, and then I put the gutter drain inside of it, and then I used the spigot piece or the spouts, and then the LED end cap piece for the piping. And then for the counter, I used the New World sign, but I believe I go and I change that because the sign, as you could tell, it had those little attachments at the bottom, so that way it gets attached to a wall or something, and I didn't quite like that. So I think I changed it, but I'm not 100% sure. And then here, I just kind of played around with adding some sort of shelf underneath the sink, but I ended up not doing that. And then I go in with some buckets and just kind of recolor those so that way they're not all the same and everything. And I do really quickly want to mention that I was I ended up losing some footage just because I didn't record it, because I didn't realize that I wasn't recording. And so if you see some cuts that are quite large, which I think you see one here in a second, where this whole entire shelf is already cluttered, that's because I lost that footage, or I didn't record it. And as you can see, yeah, it cut automatically to the shelf being cluttered and everything, but that's okay because I do record me cluttering up the quokka and the platypus backstages. But now all I'm gonna add in after this is just the pumpkins in the basket, and I struggled getting this orange pumpkin into the and to be completely in the basket and not be sticking out from either side, but I think I get it eventually. And then I add in, I think, a watering can next, and then I add in, I think, some clipboards, a ladder, so that way the staff could have something to climb up to the top if they don't want to worry about tipping the shelf over or anything. And then I just add some boxes and stuff of food that may not have been opened yet. And then, yeah, I just go in with some more clutter. And then here in a second, once we get all of this clutter and everything finished, I will go and work on the actual kiwi, the habitat portion of the backstaging. And yep, here we go. And so for this, I wanted to make a nesting box, and I didn't really know exactly what I wanted it to look like, so I just went on Google and searched like small animal nesting boxes and found one that I liked, and I just kind of used it and for reference. And I believe this is the Planet Zoo wood. I'm not exactly sure. And I used this wood over the Indonesian just because I think it has more of like a grunge look to it, to where the Indonesian can sometimes seem a little bit cleaner wood. But anyways, I'm just gonna finish up this night house, and once I finish it, I think I'm done, but I decide that I wasn't, and I wanted to add some more stuff to it. So you'll see a cut here in a second with two of them side by side. And so here, yeah, this is when I realized that, okay, well, maybe I'm not done. And so I wanted to add a ramp, so I raised it up off the ground. I sunk the side panels into the ground a little bit, so that way they could have a solid bottom. And then I add in some of the hay bales turned vertically, so that way it could act as hay. And then I add in a little egg, delete the egg from the other nesting box, and add some hay, and then it will be time for the quokka. And with this, I struggled with this door area for, I'd say, a good hour or so, because again, I wanted the metal fence prongs to be like the same distance apart, but I couldn't get them to be the same distance apart without them sticking through either to the door or through the fence post, the marquee beam on the left side. And so I end up having to shift everything to the right, I believe, and end up getting it all figured out. But yeah, no, it was a little bit of a struggle. As you can tell, I'm deleting and replacing, and I actually ended up redoing this twice, I believe, because I knew how I wanted it to be laid out, but I just couldn't quite get it to look the way I wanted it. But we eventually get it all figured out and settled. And then once we finally get all of this done, I will move on to the actual keepers area after I add in some concrete. And I do end up adding concrete into the entirety of all of the animals' backstages, just because I feel like it looks a little bit more industrial and a little bit more realistic. And then I will finally, here in a second, I should be able to get to the actual keepers portion after I add in this little like watch your step kind of thing. All I used was the 1 meter gutter piece in front of the door, because as you could tell, there's a little bit of a lip between the keeper backstage and the quokka habitat backstage. And then I'm just copying and pasting my sink and my counter over from the kiwi to the quokka, and then adding in some more rugs, but I end up deleting one of them. And then add in this pin board, and this pin board, again, it was off of the workshop, so I will leave the link to that down in the description below, along with anything else that I used off of the workshop for this build today. But yeah, and so I'm just going and copying and pasting some of the items that I've used in the kiwi portion to move over to the quokka, and then I will go in and finally create some groups of baskets and boxes of fruit and stuff, so that way I could copy those to other backstages as well. Although the Tasmanian devil and the platypus are both carnivores, so they do not eat fruits and veggies. But here, just kind of pulling out some boxes so that way I can go ahead and finish all of the fruits and stuff that I wanted to add. And for these fruits, they honestly didn't take near as long as I thought they would have, because I had both the random rotation and the random rotation all turned on. So it was a lot faster and a lot easier to clutter up those bins and stuff. And then here I'm just recoloring some pumpkins. I end up deleting the big bottom one and the small one on the bottom as well, and I just add the white and the orange one and put those on the shelf. And then I clutter up the rest of the shelf with the rest of the fruit baskets and stuff. And then I think I make a banana basket, or a bag of bananas here in a second. And then after this bag of bananas, I believe I add to this box on the floor. I was gonna use those apples, but I decided on the pineapple and the watermelon, and I ended up using the cut up watermelon as if it had been previously cut, and it's ready to be given to the animals. And so I just took the slice of watermelon that has been cut off and put it onto a plate. For the plates, I just used the terracotta pot saucers. And then it's time to add in some tools to the backstage portion. I add in a ladder, recolor it, and then it's time to make an overflow area, because I thought this area was a little bit too plain compared to the quokka backstage. So I add in an overflow area of food and stuff that has been delivered to Saguaro Sanctuary that was not eligible to fit into our main storage unit, which will eventually be added behind the kiwi backstage portion, because that wall ends up being a little bit too big or too wide, so I narrow it by adding in I think it's a 3x2 or something like that space behind there. And then here, just kind of start scouring my blueprints for a little bit more clutter. And again, all these blueprints will be left down in the description below, so make sure you go and check those out. But it is now time to add in some decals, and I learned with the kiwi that if you take everything off of the floor and then add your decals in, whenever you lower everything back down to the floor, it can give it a little bit more of a grunged look. Because especially with the carpets, because you can lower the carpets back down just a little bit up underneath the decals, and it kind of makes the carpets look a little dirty as well. And then once we get this done, I think it will be time for the platypus. And for this area, because the platypus is a carnivore, I wanted to add in a sink where they could wash any shrimp or any sort of meats that they will be giving the platypus. And then I do add in another sink as well. I make this one sink and then I copy it over to the other side. And as you can see, I'm kind of struggling a little bit to get these pieces all clicked, but I add in a drain, I add in a decal to kind of grunge up the bottom of the sink, and then I use the terracotta plant stands for the sponge that would be used to wash any food or anything like that. And then adding some legs, and then I will create a sliding door because I didn't like how the aircon vent was so big. I decided to create a sliding door to kind of cover it up, so that way they can store like any cleaning supplies or anything up underneath there. And then for the handle, I just use this small little hinge piece or bracket, and then I will copy this sink over to the right. And then I'm going in with some more decals to help kind of grunge up the counter itself. And then we will get on to the rest of the backstage portion for the platypus. And and then here I wanted to originally use that freezer on the wall of the fence, but I figured that looked a little unrealistic, so I moved it over to the actual wall itself. And then here, if you have not yet, I'm not sure if he's posted the video or not yet because I am doing this voice recording before the video has even been posted. But I joined Gunther from Gunther's Gaming along with 2 other amazing YouTube Planet Zoo content creators for a tour of his Igwa Zoo. And when we toured it in one of his backstages, he has this bin, the wheelbarrow bin, on the floor that's used to like wash the keeper's feet or anything off before they step into the actual habitat. So make sure y'all go and check that video out make sure you go check that video out, along with check out the YouTubers that I joined with, along with Gunther from Gunther's Gaming. I will leave all of them linked down below. And then here, just adding in some more clutter. Since the platypus is a carnivore, it was a little bit harder. I couldn't add in any like fruits or anything because they don't eat fruits or veggies. So I kind of just put some boxes and stuff as if they're boxes of meat or something. I know that's a little bit weird, but I didn't really know what else to put and I needed something there. So I just kind of threw stuff wherever I thought it should go. And then it was time for decals. And again, just raising everything up off of the floor so that way I could add the decals and then lower it back down and it would look more realistic. And then here, I decided as I was zooming over the pool, it needed some decals because it looked a little bit too new. And so I quickly add in some decals and everything to help with that. And then I will add in some bedding for the platypus. And I do not add in separate housing compartments for the platypus because we only have 2 females, and the only reason you would ever truly need to have separate housing compartments for the platypus is if you have a male and he were to be venomous or something like that. But here it is now time for the Tasmanian devil, and I'm going to go ahead and sign off because this is our last backstage area, but all I really do is just basically copy and paste everything over from the platypus exhibit because the Tasmanian devil is a carnivore as well. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and hop off. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you later. I hope to see you next time. Bye.